We continue this morning in our series, Deeper Wisdom. And this morning we're talking about a father's wisdom. A father's wisdom. And I'm going to read a portion of scripture. It is Proverbs 3, and it is the first 12 verses. And these 12 verses have been very helpful to me on a personal level in my journey as a father. So I want to share them with you and share with you what I gleaned from them. And hopefully it could help all of us, in particular the fathers this morning. It says this, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. My son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commands, for they will bring you many days, a full life and well-being. Never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Tie them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard with God and people. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understanding. In all your ways know him, and he will make your paths straight. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. This will be healing for your body and strengthening for your bones. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first produce of your entire harvest. Then your barns will be completely filled and your vats will overflow with new wine. Do not despise the Lord's instruction, my son, and do not loathe his discipline. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, just as a father disciplines the son in whom he delights. The author of this proverb this morning, we're just going to refer to him as a wise father. And he is speaking to his son. He has left these writings for his son to help him along the journey of life, to help his son walk rightly with God. And verses 5 to 10 in particular are a good summary. They are a good explanation of the wisdom that this father wants to give to his son. It's a good summary. It's a good explanation of the wisdom that we as fathers should give to our kids in order, whether son or daughter, so that they may have a good life as well. And to walk rightly with God is to have a good life. And to walk rightly with God is to have a good life. Just check it. He says, son, you are to trust the Lord. He says, daughter, fear the Lord. He says, honor the Lord. Because when you do these things, there is a consequence that comes with it. There is a result. There is a reciprocation that happens. He says, when you trust the Lord, your paths will be straight. When you fear the Lord, there will be healing for your body and strengthening for your bones. When you honor the Lord, your barns will be full and your vats overflowing. In other words, you will have all that you need. If you trust, if you fear, if you honor, you're going to have favor, you're going to have health and healing, you're going to have prosperity. What father doesn't want that for their children? I know I do. I know that's what my prayers are comprised of. I know that's what my efforts push towards. But hold up. That's only those 5 verses. What about the other 6? Are they not significant? And the answer to the question is, of course they are. You see, the first 6 that I just skimmed over are verses of advice on how this son's attitude should be towards the Lord. Trust, honor, fear. But I want to focus on the other 6. I want to focus on verses 1 to 4, and I want to focus on verses 11 and 12, because to me, these are the strategy verses. The wise king tells us that if we look close enough as fathers, that we should do our best to give our kids the best chance at accepting the advice that we find in verses 5 to 10. We've already established that this will help them walk a godly life, and this is the best path for their life. But what is the strategy that we take to ensure that they accept this advice, in particular in verses 5 to 10? And this advice, which will set them up for the best chances of success, has 3 elements or 3 responsibilities for us as fathers that we ought to do. They're pretty simple. You probably heard them before, but there's no problem being reminded in the things that are right. And here's what we have to do, fathers. The first thing that we're going to have to do if we're going to impart this wisdom to our kids, if we're going to have them experience the wisdom of a father, the wisdom of a godly father, the first thing you need to do is talk that talk. He says, my son, don't forget my teaching. Well, in order for him to not forget the teaching, he has to first be taught. Which means, fathers, we're going to have to say something. But let your heart keep my commands, for they will bring you many days, a full life and well-being. You can't forget what you never heard. And so we have to, as fathers, speak to our children. We have to continue to speak to our children, because if we don't speak to our children, it don't mean that they won't hear anything. It just means that they won't hear from us. And you've got to understand that we have this responsibility and privilege to speak. Not just speak loudly. Speak clearly. Speak often. Speak your mind, but most importantly, speak scripture. Fathers, your voice is more powerful than you could ever imagine. So don't you let anybody, including your fear and your doubts, cause you to keep quiet in your house where you pay the bills. You speak, and you speak whenever necessary. But make sure as you speak, fathers, you don't just speak for speaking's sake. You don't just talk because you can talk, but speak with a purpose. Speak with an end in mind. Speak with intentionality. Speak properly. Ephesians 6:4 tells us, fathers, don't stir up anger in your children. We like the verse before that, honor your father and your mother, boy. But it doesn't stop there. It says, fathers, don't stir up anger in your children. And one of the ways we tend to do that as fathers is with the words that come out of our mouth. Here's what happens. Here's what we need to try to avoid as fathers. The only time your children hear from you should not be only when you mad at them. It should not be only when you bringing discipline and correction or telling them the things they do wrong. That should not be the most often time your children hear from you. That's going to cause them to become angry. That's the only thing you have to say to me. This is the only time you know to speak to me. But instead, fathers, we need to realize that there are a lot of voices out there that are competing for our children's attention. There's that social media space. Spend some time on TikTok, not because you like it, but you need to know what's getting into the airways and the hard way of your children. There's the TV and movie space. And oh my goodness, if you would take a while and realize the voices that are influencing our children. There's the music space and the podcast space. And there are all of these voices that they have all of this access to time and time again. And here's the danger, parents. Here's the danger, fathers. Chances are the persons that are putting their voice out there, they're probably cooler than you. They're probably more relevant than you. They're probably richer than you. They're probably more relatable than you. But here's the good news. None of them love your children more than you do. None of these voices know what's best for your children the way you do. So speak. Speak up. Deuteronomy 6:6-7. These words that I'm giving you today, they are to be on your heart. Repeat them to your children. Repeat them, not just say them. Repeat them. Talk about them when you sit down in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. We hear this, but we have to be careful not to ignore this, because the silent father forfeits his power. The silent father has given up his power, has given up his influence, has given up his impact. You talk, brother. You speak, and you speak loudly. You see, your words are the tools, the very tools that's going to impart the wisdom that your children need in order to live the life that God has called them to live. And here's the thing. These words have power to build or to kill. Use them wisely. You need to understand that your words have power either to create a force to be reckoned with, or you could create a force that's only going to wreck everything. These are the power of your words. Proverbs 18:21 says it like this: life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. You need to understand, fathers, we have the ability to give life to our children by simply using our words. Words have this kind of power to cause a child to believe beyond what they can think, to cause a child to dream beyond what they usually imagine. It was a voice that created the world and brought life. It was a voice that gave you the gospel and caused you to accept and believe and brought life. It was a voice that called Lazarus from the tomb after he had already been dead 4 days and brought life. Fathers, refuse to let your children just exist. Don't let them walk around like the living dead, but instead inject life into them, inject confidence into them, inject wisdom into them. Use that voice and talk that talk. You are creating more. You are pushing more than just sound waves. You are creating an environment for your children to thrive. Proverbs 3 verse 2, for they will bring you many days. What will bring you? The words that come from your father's mouth, the wisdom that leaves from his tongue will bring you many days full of life and well-being. But we've got to talk that talk, fellas. But it can't just be talk. It has to be more than talk. It has to be followed up by something. No? So we've got to walk that walk. Proverbs 3 and 4 says, never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Tie them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard with God and people. Every father wants his child to be successful. Every father wants his children to be successful. Every father wants well for their children. Amen? And the wise king says this to his sons: never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Some translations have mercy and truth. Some says loving kindness, because that's the essence of the word loyalty there. Never let loving kindness and faithfulness leave you. In other words, in order for you to find favor with men and God, in order for things to go well with you in life, you've got to exhibit these behaviors, the Father says, and it's loving kindness and faithfulness. But here's what I want you to understand, that this goes a little deeper if we pay attention to this text and the rest of the Bible. Because if you turn to John 13 and 34, it says this: I give you a new command, love one another. There's the command, but it continues. Just as I have loved you, you are also to love one another. Hebrews 10 and 23 has a similar tone to it, a similar tone in terms of giving instruction, but not leaving it as just instruction. It says, let us hold on to the confession of our hope without wavering, since he who promised is faithful. The wise king says, make sure you have loving kindness and make sure you have faithfulness. Jesus says in the Gospel of John, I've given you a new command, love one another. There's the instruction, but then he says, as I have loved you. There's the example. Hebrews says, let's hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering. In other words, continue to be faithful. There's the instruction, since he who promised is faithful. There's the example. And so in this father telling his son, look, if you want all things to go well between you and God and you and man, then you're going to have loving kindness and faithfulness. But in saying that, he's also speaking to himself, because where there is instruction, there also has to be an example. And so what he is saying is, I too need to express loving kindness and faithfulness in particular to you. I've got to walk that walk. And when it comes to this love and this faithfulness, we cannot just be instructions givers, fathers. We've got to walk this out. I said this on Mother's Day, and I'll say it to you again. Howard Hendricks says it. We teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. You have to refuse to continue to instruct your children to be something that you refuse to be. We teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. If your son grew up to be just like you, would that be okay? Regardless of what you say, if he behaved the way you behave, did the things you do, would that be okay? If your daughter brought home a man just like you and say, this is the one I'm going to marry and have 10 babies for, would that be okay? I mean the 10 babies part, more so the marriage part. Would it be okay? And if the answer is honestly no, then we know we have some work to do. Let's be honest, fathers. We know we all have work to do. But what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about having loving kindness and being faithful in our duties as a father. Can our children honestly have that testimony about us? And if not, then we have this ability to work towards that. All is not lost. All I'm saying is, we've got to make a commitment to be what we want to see. We've got to make a commitment to do what we want done, and we've got to make a commitment to say what we want heard, because whatever we put out there is what we're going to get back. I like to watch documentaries, right? In particular, war documentaries. I don't know if that means something is wrong with me, but they just fascinate me. And here's what I noticed after watching probably, I don't know, how much? 200, a million? Okay, I was going to say 200. She say a million. Here's what I noticed. The most respected war generals are not the ones with the great inspirational speeches. They're not the one that fires the men up with their words and then goes sit in their safe office. When the soldiers are interviewed, the respected war generals are the ones who actually go out on the battlefield with the soldiers and lead them in the way. In other words, the very thing he is asking of them, he is willing to do himself. What I'm saying to you, fathers, don't miss this. Actions have the power of authentication. And so while it's necessary that we talk that talk, we have to walk that walk, because it puts the stamp of authenticity on what it is that you've already said. Paul says it like this in 1 Corinthians 11:1. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. You see, your children are going to notice then that you're not just instructing them, that you are with them. And there's just something about knowing that your leader is with you that makes you want to give it your all. You all know you have the managers at work. They only like to give instructions, but they don't want to lift a finger. They're talking about we're a team. No, we're not. We a team. You just lazy. But then there are those managers who are willing to get their hands dirty with you and do what's necessary. And if you're honest, you're willing to go to bat for them. You're willing to give them a little more, because you realize that this is more than just talk. Their actions show that they believe what they say. We've got to walk that walk. But even if we talk that talk, and even if we walk that walk, here's where it gets a little frustrating for us as parents. Our children don't always get it right. Still, if we get it right in walking the walk, if we get it right in talking the talk, which a lot of fathers in here do, sometimes our children still don't get it right. But here's where it gets interesting. Neither do we. Here's where it gets more interesting. Even though we don't always get it right, and we recognize that they're not getting it right, we still have to correct them. See, popular culture has allowed us to think that we can't correct our children because we're imperfect. I'm so tired of hearing parents say that. Well, I can't tell her she shouldn't do that because when I was her age, I used to do that. That's why you should tell her she shouldn't do that. Because you did that and you suffer the consequences, now you could stop her from experiencing the same consequences. Don't ever let the fact that you are not perfect prevent you from doing your job, fathers, which is to correct them. Now, in correcting them, because fathers, we typically don't have a problem in correcting, right? In the Caribbean, it's almost like we look forward to that too much. We speak with such joy about having to discipline our kids. We speak with such ferocity, such passion, about how we could do and what we could do and what their reaction is going to be. But here's what I want to tell you today. How we correct our children matters. And so, fathers, sometimes, if we're honest with ourselves, we're also going to have to correct that correction. Proverbs 3:11-12 says, "Do not despise the Lord's instruction, my son, and do not loathe his discipline, for the Lord disciplines the one he loves, just as a father disciplines the sons in whom we delight." At times it's necessary. We're going to have to correct our kids, but the wise father tells the son here in this bit of scripture not to despise the instruction, not to hate the discipline. And we've got to be able to communicate this to our kids as well. Look, son, I'm doing this, but what I want you to not do is despise this instruction. You may be upset with me for a while, but don't hate discipline, because the reality is the Lord disciplines those who we love. And I'm also disciplining you from a place of love. Hebrews 12:7-8, endure suffering as discipline. God is dealing with you as sons. For what son is there that the father does not discipline? If you are without discipline, which all receive, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. The father who refuses to correct his children are communicating to them that they are illegitimate. But in this discipline, in this need to discipline, in this wisdom of actually carrying out discipline, we need to understand something, that discipline is not a matter of venting our frustrations. Discipline is not an opportunity to project anger on your children that you have for someone else. You had a hard day, you come home and the children tipped you off, and now everything your boss did, your children get. The wife don't know how to talk to you. She's been disrespecting you for the last week, but you can't say nothing back to her. And so everything you have for her, the children get. Discipline is not a matter of revenge. Discipline is not the opportunity to show our power or our strength. As fathers, our discipline, our correction should be like God's. And the last time I checked, the Lord is kind. And so even in our discipline, there should be an element of kindness. When God disciplines us as a good father, it's the proof of his love. And so when God disciplines us, it's done in love. God has never disciplined you from a place of hate. It's always been love. And so where we don't line up, fathers, we've got to be committed to fix that. And I've been there. I've made the mistake of disciplining from a place of anger, from a place of bitterness, from a place of frustration. I've been there. But what we've got to do is, when we find ourselves in those moments, here's where the real manhood comes in. We've got to fix it. And fix it is not only next time don't do it. Fix it is go to the child and apologize for the time you did do it. Here's why. Because every time you've disciplined them, a part of that discipline has been, say sorry for what you've done. But we've got to walk the walk. And so when you mess up, say sorry for what you've done. It lets your child know, one, that you're not perfect. It lets your child know, two, that you care. And it lets your child know that, three, it's okay to tell people sorry when you've messed up. You see, because those who refuse to admit where they are wrong are unfit for leadership in any area of life, including parenting. If you refuse to admit that you are wrong, you are unfit for leadership. But when we could come to a place where we could humble ourselves to the point where we could go to our children and say sorry, you think it's the belt that's going to get your respect? That will get you their respect. That will open their ears to you. That will open their hearts to the wisdom that you have to give to them. So we talk that talk. That's why we walk that walk, and we take the time when necessary to correct that correction. You see, here's where it gets frustrating for me. Popular culture has attempted to make the father incapable or unrealistic. It's taken it to the two extremes. Either the father is an idiot or he's a superhero. You see, back in the 50s and 60s, two of the most popular TV fathers were Ward Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver. Some of y'all don't know about that. Y'all didn't have satellite then. And Jim Anderson from Fathers Knows Best. And what's common about these guys is they did everything right. They said all the right things. They had all the right answers to all the questions that their kids had. They were too perfect. And so as the decades went on, TV began to make the father more and more imperfect. And now today, two of the longest running fathers on TV, understand this, understand what kept the attention of the people, what kept the attention of the masses, what kind of father is being fed to the masses. Two of the most popular fathers on TV, two of the longest running fathers on TV are Homer Simpson from The Simpsons and Peter Griffin from Family Guy. These are men who are known for saying the stupidest things and messing everything up. And when they try to fix it, they make it worse. This is the picture of a father that's been bleeding into our televisions for the last 30 years. Incapable, can't do nothing, only there to take up space. And so in order to correct the father that was too perfect, we swung the pendulum all the way the next way to where every father is now an idiot. And the modern day fathers that are good that you would find in a movie, let me tell you what makes that father good. He have to rescue his son who got kidnapped by the Russian mafia, and he got to fly halfway across the world and kill 20 people and rescue him from the Russian mafia. Then he's a good daddy. He got to take a bullet for them. He got to lay on a bomb or something. He got to run up in the hospital like John Q and say, give me a kidney for my son. You got to do all of this in order to be a good father. Come on. So either you are incapable or you have to be superhuman. Fathers, let me tell you something. You're not an idiot, and your value is not in you pretending to be superhuman. I don't care what the TV tells you. You are not an idiot. You have the wisdom of God. You have the wisdom of God that he's given you the power and the responsibility to impart to your children. Don't let anybody shut you down just because your subject and verb may not agree. Don't let anybody shut you down because you may have an accent that's difficult to believe. Don't let anybody shut you down just because you may not have graduated high school. What you have in you was deposited by the Spirit of the living God, and it is necessary for the vibrancy and the well-being of your children. You are not an idiot. And you don't have to be superhuman. You don't have to take a bullet. If necessary, take the bullet. And most fathers in here would gladly take the bullet. That's not the issue. What I'm saying is your value is not in the fact that you can take a bullet. Your value is in your everyday showing up, doing what needs to be done, not complaining, just see it needs to be done. You do it whatever it takes because you know that these people, your wife, your children, your baby's mother, your children depend on you. And as a man, you have determined that with the power and the strength of God, you will do whatever it takes and you will show up. And when you fall and mess up, you're going to get back up and keep going. That is where your strength lies, in the everyday thing that people miss, that people think are mundane, that people say, oh, you should be doing. Yeah, I should be doing it and I will do it. But my value is in the fact that I value you and will do whatever is necessary to make your life better, your life easier, and to make sure that my children be everything that the Father in heaven has appointed them to be. You don't have to be superhuman. You just got to be committed. You see, don't miss the trick. Don't miss the trick. Because if we could get the fathers out the way, all hell breaks loose. If we could, and see, when we can't physically get them out the way, if we could make them feel stupid, all hell breaks loose. When we can't physically get them out the way, if we can make them feel inadequate because they ain't superhuman, all hell breaks loose. But let me tell you one more time, man of God, you have whatever is necessary inside of you to do what is necessary that God has called you to do. So you don't forsake your post, you don't give up your task, and you don't delegate it to anybody else. You stand strong and you talk that talk. You stand strong and you walk that walk. You stand strong and you do whatever it takes. Be present. Fathers, we hold in our hands these tools to shape the future We have the ability to speak life. We walk in integrity. We correct with love, and we set our children on this path to success and spiritual prosperity. And so we've got to commit to this task. We've got to commit to this noble task. And we've got to trust that the same God that entrusted us is going to equip us. Let me show you the proof that he will. Genesis 18:19, for I have chosen him, being Abraham, so that he will command his children and his house after him, to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. This is how the Lord, watch the next word, will fulfill to Abraham what it is he promised him. Watch this now. God says that he made Abraham a promise, and he will fulfill the promise. That's a word of guarantee. He will fulfill. But if you go back to the first line, it says, I chose him so that he will command his children. I chose Abraham because I want to make a great nation out of him. But in order for there to be a great nation, he's going to have to teach his children everything that I've commanded him to do. I'm counting on him to teach his children everything that I've commanded him to do. And by that, a great nation will be birthed. But he goes on to say that he will fulfill every promise to Abraham. But the promise is still contingent upon Abraham teaching his children. So there is a task given to Abraham. There is an entrustment given to Abraham. But the fact that God says he will fulfill the promise to Abraham, it means this: he knows that Abraham is going to do what it is that's required of him. How does he know? Is it because Abraham is so great? Is it because Abraham has it all together? Not the man who called his wife his sister just so he don't get in problems. Not the man who messed up time and time again. Why God realized that Abraham will do what he asked him to do is because he equipped him to do what was necessary for him to do. You don't have to be perfect. Abraham wasn't. You just need to be faithful. You just need to be faithful. And so my prayer for you today, man, is that your homes will be filled with the sound of godly wisdom. My prayer for you today is that your homes will be filled with the example of faithful living. My prayer for you today, man, is that the warmth of loving correction will be a part of your children's testimony. And in doing this, may your children rise up and walk in the ways of the Lord, blessed and prepared to be a blessing to the nations. May your line be a blessing to the nations. May your line be a great nation, because you decided that you will do what is necessary and talk that talk, walk that walk, correct that correction, be faithful, be present as God equips you to do everything that he has called you to do in order to give the wisdom that the Lord gave you and those that came before you, to give that same wisdom to your children. Happy Father's Day. God bless you. I appreciate you so much.